Hello again, everyone. This is Jeff Adler, continuing my video series from Why I'm Right, based on my book from 5 years ago. Today, I want to talk about something that I've been harping on and off throughout this video series for the entire time I've been doing it, and for many, many decades, really. And that is the current state of our educational system. I've danced around the subject of indoctrination off and on for many, many, many times, and today we're going to dive headfirst into it. We are. This is one of the most important subjects that I can come up with. It's right up there with the dangerous tool of political correctness. It is right up there with the evil of abortion. This is has to do with our kids, our future, and another insidious plot by the left going back, in this case, over a century to manipulate how our kids are taught, what they think, and all the rest. I've mentioned many times that the left has found lots of ways of hiding what they do, and then transferring what they do onto Republicans, one or the other or both. They transferred Nazism, which was a left-wing ideology, onto the right. They transferred the Russia hoax and the Russia scandal and the Ukrainian scandal now, which was their scandal. They were complicit in all this stuff, and try to put it on to the right, specifically President Trump. But oddly enough, when it comes to education, they're not doing this. There is not a whole. I have not heard a whole lot of BS from the left crying out about right-wing indoctrination. I have not heard a whole lot of people try to make the case that there are too many right-wing teachers and professors in school who are attempting to turn our kids into right-wing automatons. They're not saying it. I'm not sure I can explain why they're not trying this type of transference of something they're guilty of onto us, but they're not really doing it. Now, I had to go deep into the internet, past all the left-wing stuff that Google and others like to put way at the top, all the stuff that agrees with their left-wing mindset and worldview, to get into some substantive rebuttal and some substantive factual information. But I found it, and in doing so, you'll come across a blog or a forum or something where the uninformed, the misinformed, or the purposely, people purposely lying about the subject will try to interject into a conversation about left-wing indoctrination, either that the Republicans do it too, which flies in the face of what I just said about how few people are crying out about right-wing indoctrination. Or they'll say that all education is indoctrination, and that's true in its purest, simplest level. The idea of indoctrination is to throw ideas out at somebody in the hopes that they will adopt those ideas for themselves. If that's the very nature of education, is for a teacher who knows to try to give that knowledge to the kid who doesn't know, so that they will also know. But it's corrupting the word in a way, because educating is simply acquiring knowledge. Indoctrinating is acquiring belief, and there's a difference. Maybe minor, but there's a difference. Now, and then of course there's some that just say there's no indoctrination from the left at all. They're just complete deniers, if you will. It's not happening. And they won't have any way of expressing this or proving it. They just say it's not happening. Curiously, the people who argue on behalf of the left-wing indoctrination give emotional pleas, almost completely and totally. The people who argue about the indoctrination on the left from the right give statistical, philosophical, or anecdotal pleas. Which one would you follow more? So this is going to be a fairly long video. Sorry, I know some of these get into multiple parts and you guys lose interest, but try to bear with me. I got a stack, folks. I'm only going to touch the surface. I'm only going to scratch the top of the upper crust of the surface here. Indoctrination in schools is a huge, complex, and crazy topic. But I'm going to cover what I can. Certainly not everything I'm going to want to talk about is going to be talked about. Just don't have the time or the energy to do it all. It's a very complex issue. I'm going to give you a little bit of statistical proof that I'm right. I am right, by the way. I'm going to give you some historical perspective, and most compelling of all, and also talk to you about some, in terms of history, who the major players in ruining our educational system or creating it what it is today, and who the big heroes of the left are that caused all the mayhem that we see in schools. And then most compelling of all will probably be at the end when I give you anecdotal evidence that comes from students and parents and the like. So, let us begin with this topic here into the stats. So there's a number of ways of statistically qualifying or quantifying where students are these days. There have been all sorts of tests and studies and this and that, and it goes on ad infinitum. It's an unending process, of course. One group or one organization that is charged themselves or have been charged with the analyzing where kids are today scholastically is the National Assessment of Educational Progress, NAEP. And they had a study that compared 1990 to 2019. So basically a 20-year comparison. And they usually use grade 4 and grade 8 as a means to study, because that's when assessments are given in school these days at those grades, the aptitude tests, we used to call them when I was in school. And basically there's a uptick, according to them, in how well we are doing in math and in reading. From 1990 to 2019, grade 4 went up 27 points, and grade 8 went up 19 points. And in reading, grade 4 went up 4 points, and grade 8 went up 8 points. Okay, that sounds wonderful. And not to say that the NAEP is hiding anything, but when they give you a report card, it is not. You have to really dig to understand what these numbers mean. It's not just that we went up in the last 20 years in math and reading, but it's up from what? Compared to what? Well, when you figure out where we are statistically overall, an uptick of 27 points in math over 20 years becomes meaningless, as in to say a blip on the radar. If you are very, very bad at math and you get better, then you're only very bad at math. You're not good. So don't let statistics fool you, because they don't always paint the picture, especially when they're isolated like that. Doing more digging, I found the following. In terms of the percentage of students, seniors, who are proficient in certain studies. Math and reading are the big ones because they're part of the 3 R's, writing, reading, and arithmetic. 2016 report, not too terribly old, which was for 2015. The report came out in 16, talking about 4 years ago. Not much has changed since then. This is just something I found. High school seniors. They analyzed thousands and thousands of students in 740 different high schools. So quite comprehensive. They found that 37% of students, of seniors, were prepared for college-level math and reading, meaning as they graduate and go into college, if they go into college, they're actually prepared for what they're going to encounter. 37% of them were prepared for college-level math and reading. 25% scored at proficient or higher in math. 25%. 37% scored proficient or higher in reading. These are high school seniors. 38% scored below a this is at the opposite end of the spectrum. 38% scored below a basic level in math. 28% scored below a basic level in reading. I don't know which is worse, having so few percentages proficient or having such a high percentage effectively illiterate. Those in the bottom percentile, the poorest performing students, dropped 4 points in math and 6 points in reading from previous report in 2013. So whereas this overall thing says it goes up in the last 20 years, recently went down. I mean, there might be conflicting information, and that's also part of the problem we'll talk about, but that 4 points in math and 6 points in reading from a report that was done by these people in 2013, just 3 years prior, reading was at its lowest level ever recorded. That's how bad it's gotten. 32% of whites and 47% of Asians scored at proficient or higher. And we're doing it as an ethnic point of view. 7% of blacks and 12% Hispanic scored at proficient or higher. 7% black, 12% Hispanic, proficient in math. And in reading, they were at 17 and 25%. Dropout rate is at historic lows, which is good right now. They haven't been passed, but right now they're at historic lows. So that's a good thing. Okay. They were only at 4.8% in 2016. So, okay. We'll give credit where credit is due. Why do less than half the states, however, have proficiency exams in history? Why is history not even a subject that is checked on in terms of proficiency in more than half the states? Anyone want to hazard a guess why that might be? Maybe it's because the left doesn't want our kids to know their history when they're not busy, of course, revising history on their behalf. Now, students are not only being not taught math well and not taught reading well and not taught history well, I'll posit as well, or civics, or economics, or languages. It goes on and on and on. In fact, they've stripped a lot of this stuff out of many schools. They're also indoctrinating kids at a political level. Now, not teaching them well is not in and of itself indoctrination. But the reason they're not being taught well is part of the indoctrination. We'll talk about it. It's a philosophical thing more than anything else. There are historical figures like Barack Obama, who, when I was in school, we used to learn history from the back forward, not from present back, and it wasn't jumbled up. And if we had, by the time the end of the school year was in the early part of June, if we often didn't make it to the most current events in history because time ran out textbook wise. So learning about the current state of affairs in America, you might say, often was missed. But in today's world, in today's classroom, it's jumbled around to make sure that the kids can learn as much about Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton as possible. Here's what fourth graders will learn in a book about the life of President Barack Obama. Fourth graders, though he is referred to in this book simply as Barack. Now, okay, again, I'll say, for fairness, there's nothing wrong with learning about Barack Obama in fourth grade in a book. Did we have these children learn anything about George Bush or Ronald Reagan? I would bet my house no. Here's what they learned. 1, Barack learned how to be black, which meant cursing, fighting, and smoking, drinking, and doing drugs from watching television. Now, why would you need to tell a fourth grader that Barack Obama was a dope-smoking, cursing, fighting black man in the first place? And then when you go ahead and tell him this, you also have to lie and say he didn't just do this on his own or do this from influence of his friends or who taught him. No, he learned it from television. It's television's fault. They learned that whites are racist and therefore did not want to vote for Barack. Fourth graders. Barack's pastor said that God would damn America for mistreating black people. The pastor called our country a failure. I'm not saying it's wrong, that statement, that happened. I'm just saying, why does a fourth grader need to know this? How does this advance this fourth grader's understanding of anything? And 4, blacks and whites are angry at each other, and only Barack could make the country more perfect. I'm sorry, did Barack make our country more perfect? Did we become less polarized under his watch or more polarized? Did Barack, did he not squander a great opportunity to get us all together, kumbaya? Yes, of course he did. Only Barack could do it. That is indoctrination, folks. That is a captive audience with minds of mush being fed a bunch of horse hockey for political gain without balance. It's almost like it was run by journalists. So let me give you a little bit of idea of the history of American education, and I'll do that in our next part, where we will talk about how we got where we're at historically. All right, we'll catch you on the next one.